Good evening, everyone. Have you noticed that the media has been covering riots and protests over the last few years? Being African American in this country, I've had to watch how the media portrays my people and portrays what we're doing for our rights. So I am speaking to you about Black Lives Matter so you get a deeper understanding of why the movement happened and why it's still continuing to go on for this day. In this presentation, I will talk about three important things: why the movement started, who it has helped, and the social media effects it has had on the movement. As I stated before, I want to start off by talking about why the movement started. So according to Howard University, who gave a broke down description about the beginning stages of the movement, it started with Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old male. On one night, he went to the corner store to grab snacks, and on his way home, George Zimmerman, the man who shot him, believed him to be a burglar of some type because they were having break-ins. So after a physical altercation with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman ended up fatally shooting him, causing him to lose his life just based on what he looked like. That's why the movement started. Activists like me, who are active in the community and who are very woke about Black Lives Matter and everything, will say that the movement initially began when the Civil Rights Movement started. They were calling it the Civil Rights Movement, but it's basically Black Lives Matter on a modern scale. Well, now modern scale. I believe it to have started in 1955 with Emmett Till, a 14-year-old male. He was accused of offending a white woman in the corner store, and that caused for him to ultimately meet his death. It was a gruesome death which sparked a whole movement, and it began to get our activists and our spokespersons to start speaking out about how Black Americans are treated in this country. Founding leaders of this movement include Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi. Before the tragedy that led to making this decision, they were all activists for their own subgroups, but because of everything that was happening after Trayvon died, they thought it would be a good idea to put together something that was a safe space for every person in the African American community, which is what they came up with Black Lives Matter for. In their own rights, they were activists for all their different groups, but collectively, they wanted to make a change within the entire community, so they created this movement. These three ladies did some amazing groundbreaking work and helped so many people's deaths become a positive thing, and a thing to keep people going and keep people fighting for our rights instead of just being another police brutality death. Due to the death of Trayvon Martin and the creation of Black Lives Matter, many people have benefited from having their names and their deaths attached to this movement, as I said before. It's brought light to the same situation that has happened multiple times and that people are tired of sitting back and watching. One example listed on the Black Lives Matter website is Mike Brown. After he was murdered by Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson in 2014, the event it started was a rise of protests in St. Louis and Ferguson, where they even did a Black Lives Matter ride. Despite being tear gassed night after night, day after day, they spent 15 days planning this ride, which eventually had 600 people come and show support. A few names that have benefited from, I don't want to say benefited, but a few names that have been added onto the list of police brutalities that have gained light from the Black Lives Matter movement will include Tamir Rice, Tanisha Anderson, Maya Hall, Walter Scott, Sandra Bland. For people who are not even politically and socially woke, as most, these are household names because of the media coverage that is going on within this world. These names hold weight in so many households in the world due to the wrongful deaths by white Americans and by the American police system. These have all sparked multiple protests, riots, and conversations within their own. These deaths were recognized all over the country, and because of Black Lives Matter, it's shown that it's not a joke and that these deaths shouldn't be taken as lightly. When the movement first started in 2013 and eventually amped up in 2014, many people began to step up and take more roles within the organization. And it began to reach more people than ever, especially with social media. So Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and especially Facebook became a big component of Black America because it was at a point that in this generation we could show the rest of the world what's going on, even though we're not all together physically. Using social media to get the word out there has been the best thing for our generation, having the world accessible at our fingertips. According to Inka Rojas Davis, in the paper, The Social Media Response to Black Lives Matter, How Twitter Uses and Interacts with Black Lives Matter Through Hashtags. After George Zimmerman was acquitted for Trayvon Martin's death, Facebook was the first to use the hashtag Black Lives Matter. The hashtag has blown up over the nation and is still used daily in 2020. It's used on every post, during every protest, during every riot, anything you can think of that has to do with Black Lives Matter. It became an important pillar in the African American community to show solidarity and show that we are all one. In the social media response to Black Lives Matter, how the Twitter users interact with Black Lives Matter through hashtag use, especially by using the hashtag to create a stream of content and to see relatable posts to grow with the movement. Making the information easily accessible to people on these sites that they use every day is an easy way to educate them and to educate the world around us. So with all of these social media platforms being in use, it's helped to show the rest of the world that this is what's happening in America and this is the injustice that's going on. Social media has always been an easy way to get your word out, but when you're using social media for an important message and something you stand for, you're adding to the commentary, adding to the community, and help making the message stronger. In conclusion, the reasoning for Black Lives Matter being an important topic that everyone should know about is because it's affecting the world we all live in. For centuries, for years, we have always been a divided country, but due to the racial injustices and the differences in our country, it's dividing us even further because it became something that can't be hidden or looked over anymore. In this presentation, I talked about 3 important things: why the movement started, who it has helped, and the social media effects on the movement. Throughout all of my points, the key thing to remember is that the movement started based on the deaths and making Americans aware of what is happening in Black America, either through protests, riots, social media, and even through the regular media. I would like to leave you with one final thought. If this is happening in your community, would you believe that all of the steps that Black Lives Matter is taking is socially acceptable and is appropriate due to the circumstances? Many Black Americans are showing up missing, unavailable, unable to find because of all of these steps happening in the world. So take that with you and think, are these responses to protesting, the rioting, a fair response to the years of injustice that these people have had to face? Thank you. Have a good evening.